doesn't want to look at Islam and Muslims as an idea, but rather as an identity or as a race, or the racialization of Islam. And by the way, this is defined as terrorism. Terrorism militarily, operationally, like ISIS, kills innocent people. Culturally, it's any means necessary. You can lie, you can do whatever you want to separate Muslims out and say we are the victims. It's the end justifies the means. They'll do anything to do it, and this is part of the process.
And you think that the lying is part of the culture?
It's part of the Islamist culture, not as a Muslim, as a moral, faith-loving Muslim who believes in God. No, this is our problem. This is the pathology I'm trying to treat in our Muslim reform movement. But anyone who thinks that the theocrats of Islam, the Islamists, that this isn't part of the pathology is in deep denial. And the denial, Juan, is exaggerated by those who want to continue to bury us in grievances and victimization rather than telling our children that our legacy as Americans is that we're Americans first. Americans are not the them. We are the Americans, and they want to divide us versus them, and they do it through mockery, through videos, whatever it is, in order to separate us and our children out of society. We need to call this out, and the reason you're hearing more about it now is people are just fed up with it, and they're starting to report it. Police are starting to chase down facts better than they used to 5, 6 years ago, so I think it was happening before, but now we're just reporting on it better.
And do you think, in fact, and we've heard some of these reports from places like the Southern Poverty Law Center tracking anti-Muslim hate acts, do you think, in fact, that there are legitimate acts of terror being acted on, being done to Muslims at this moment after the Trump election?
Well, not necessarily. There's been no demonstrable upticks of real acts of hate. There has certainly been some amount of bigotry that has existed, but any honest Muslim would recognize that there's actually 3 times more against the Jewish community, so there's bigotry out there. But the best way, Juan, as an American Muslim to deal with that and melt away the bigotry is for Americans not to see me grabbing onto the victim mindset, but rather to say that we need to show that we are the solution. We're going to own the problem, and that will melt away any bigotry that exists, for Americans to see us taking ownership and being the solution rather than fearing us and getting some rational fear of wondering, boy, what do we do? There's vehicles on streets that are mowing down people. How do we prevent this? If they're going to see something, say something, we can't make them fearful of us. We need to own the problem.
One last quick question, Dr. Jasir. Both cases, the New York subway, Michigan, very young people, not seniors, young people. Why?
Because this is part of the radicalization. This girl in New York, her parents were very conservative, very oppressive. She was out drinking, she was dating, so in response, just like a radicalized terrorist on the field in Syria of ISIS, here she's not violent, but decided to act out. And then we saw when she went to court, her head was shaved. Yeah. So she is a victim in some ways of honor abuse, honor violence, but we need to start to call this out and reform our own community.
We need more of your voice, Dr. Jasir. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.
When we come back, the head of